Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there.
Da 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 da. Or a different flavor for you is love and marriage, love and marriage. Remember that show from the 90s?
Go together like a horse and carriage.
Oh my goodness.
This, your brother. You can't have one without the other.
You know a lot more about Married with Children than I do.
That's like the best part of that show. I was never a fan of Married with Children.
All I know about Married with Children is like, is there like a Simpsons parody of Married with Children or something? I feel like I've seen more parodies of Married with Children than the actual show.
I mean, the only one I remember is from The Simpsons, where it's like, I don't even remember what it was. I just remember a couple of shows of its time definitely poked fun at it.
Anyway, speaking of love and or marriage, it's been a big week for my co-host Will.
Well, that's right, Lucas. One of the things two of the things that have happened in my life in the last couple weeks is that, one, I've moved back into the city where you and I live, Halifax. So we are in the same place, although not in the same physical space. And the second thing is, I got engaged, and I'm very, very happy about it. And thank you very much for your congratulations. Appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad that you're happy. I'm happy too, and one of those reasons is because we're back again, another week, another episode of Arthur, because of course we're the Episodic Arthur podcast. What's the show called, Will?
It's called Elwood City Limits. That's right, the Episodic Arthur podcast. A little bit of, I won't lie to you, a little bit of mic difficulties on my end. You know, it's been a long time since I've, about two weeks or so since I've even watched an Arthur episode, taken notes on an Arthur episode, since I've posted an image to our social media, since I posted almost anything to our social media. So you'll forgive me if I'm a little rusty, but nothing knocks out the cobwebs better than just getting back to it. So happy to do that. My name is Will Young, and with me, as always, is Lucas Mancini. Any new developments in your life, Lucas?
No, it's same old for me. I will say, me and my girlfriend have been watching CNN series The 90s. And you know how I always talk about how Arthur sort of acts as like a Nostradamus. Like, for some reason, these episodes we go back and watch from the early 90s always seem to tie in with what's currently going on. Well, it's happened again because it wasn't just a couple of days ago that we were watching the episode of the 90s all about the Clinton years. And it was uncanny to see the Arthurized version of former President Clinton represented in this episode that we're about to talk about.
Yes, and I can't wait. But of course, in our absence, we do have an email that floated our way, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. It's from Nancy from Salt Lake City, Utah, one of our American listeners, appropriately enough, for this episode. She hasn't written
SLC, represent.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Nancy. Appreciate that. Here's her quick feedback on the latest episode, which was Lost. It's actually one of her personal favorites of all time. She watched it in her teens when it aired. She likes it because she related to it because her first year of high school. I'll read it from her perspective right now. I related to it since my first year of high school. I had to take the public bus, not one, but two public buses, in order to get back home on a daily basis. One of my worries was getting lost and not knowing what to do. Seeing this Arthur episode made me more at ease those first years of taking the bus. It's a great episode to show kids or even teens who may have to take a bus or even a subway train by themselves and how this type of scenario can actually happen, but how to overcome it like Arthur did.
Minus the squid people, of course.
Yeah, now kids, don't believe everything you see on TV. Squid people, I've yet to see one on a public bus, so keep that in mind. She also wants to say, I know you guys said that you started to dislike the Brain. That made me smile. The reason being that I really like Brain. To me, he becomes such a jerk, yet very hilarious throughout this season and beyond. You guys also mentioned how Mr. Ratburn in this latest episode seemed to get more character than just being a teacher. I think if you guys keep going with this podcast, you'll be happy to know that in the latest season, there's a Ratburn episode that continues to give him more character. And I love that the writers will do that for him even after all these years. It's she says it's season 20, episode 5. My goodness, 20 seasons of Arthur and counting, it seems. And finally, her most anticipated episode for us to cover is one called Bleep. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Nancy, thank you very much for your
I think
thoughts.
I've seen YouTube poops of the Bleep episode, but never the episode itself. So that's what I'm excited for as well.
That's a phenomenon I've run into before of seeing the YouTube poop of something before seeing the actual episode or movie. It kind of ruins the movie, but also kind of makes it better. So thank you very much, Nancy. I mean, we'll have to see how the Brain's character evolves and what we think of him as we go along. Not much of the Brain in these 2 episodes today. So, Lucas, this is one that you and I have been anticipating. I'm sure many others have been anticipating it as well. It's DW Goes to Washington.
Like I said, it's been a Slick Willy week for me. A lot of Billy Clinton, more than I expected to be packed into 1 week.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about whether or not this president is indeed Bill Clinton, but it actually starts off appropriately with DW. The cold open is Arthur on the swing set, and he says DW doesn't like to have fun unless they're doing something that she wants to do. And the translation here for this cold opening is that DW is just kind of a jerk unless she gets her way. We see the example here of they're in the park, and she kind of is sitting down, refusing to have fun unless they do what she wants to do, which is go to the movies. And Arthur even thinks that she would do this at in situations where you couldn't help but be excited.
Yeah, like Arthur pontificates that even if they were to be deep sea explorers a la James Cameron, they would, even if they came across the fictional Atlantis, the lost continent of Atlantis, DW would say, I didn't want to go to Atlantis, I would go home. Which in Arthur's imaginary scenario, DW is the one who knows how to pilot the Seacraft. And so Arthur, I guess, drowns or something, because Arthur says you need to control the controls. Also, it's kind of a strange interpretation of the Atlantis myth, because I was always under the impression that Atlantis used to be a city, and then it sunk into the sea, and everybody who lived there died. But in the Arthur universe, it seems like it's inhabited by some sort of sea people, very much like the DC universe Atlantis.
Yeah, it's more of like like Atlantica from The Little Mermaid. It's more of a underwater paradise. And I will note here, DW says she never wanted to see the lost condiments of Atlantis.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah, she instead of the lost continent of Atlantis, as Arthur purports. So the episode begins with Dad saying that he's got a free weekend with no catering job, so they should go somewhere for the weekend. And Arthur is about to pipe up and say something, and Mom quickly shuts him down, saying other than Bionic Bunny Playland. So Bionic Bunny is pretty interesting because Bionic Bunny kind of the analog for Superman in this series, but he is popular enough to warrant his own amusement park, I guess.
Yeah, I guess like they couldn't just have like a Universal Studios where there's like the Bionic Bunny coaster, and what was the Batman equivalent? It was like, oh, what was he called?
Oh, Dark Bunny.
Dark Bunny. That's right. There's like a Dark Bunny coaster, whatever the Arthur version of the Hulk would be.
But it's interesting because here in our world, the superheroes all kind of conglomerate into one. Like Universal Studios has its Islands of Adventure, and those have like the Marvel people. I know that there's a Superman ride on, I think maybe in Universal, but I'm not 100% on that one. Actually, it might be like Six Flags, whichever one has the Warner Brothers license.
I think that's Universal. I think you're correct.
Okay. But yeah, it's a symbol of his popularity, but I guess they're not going to go to Bionic Bunny Playland, wherever that may be. So Arthur instead suggests Washington because he and his class have been learning about politics recently. And we get this is not only an Arthur meme, but it's also, this is prime cut. This is farm-raised, free-range, grain-fed, all-American dad joke.
I was going to say, if I hadn't seen it as a meme before, but if this isn't already one, this is primo meme material.
He says, that's a capital idea, and then spends the next several seconds both recovering from mom groaning at it and trying to explain it to Arthur, which is, it's kissing emoji, circle emoji. It's primo. Now, that's Arthur's idea, but they decide they want to take it to a vote, and we cut to DW at the TV, and she's watching a commercial for a place called Ponyland.
Which has got a very catchy song, I have to say. It kind of slaps.
Yeah, I'll have to put it in right about here.
You've got to go to Ponyland. You should go to Ponyland. You really must go to Ponyland.
Yeah, so I noticed this when I was listening. It kind of, since Mom has the line right before Ponyland, the jingle starts, it kind of sounds like it's Mom's voice actor singing the song.
I didn't pick up on that.
I wonder if that's one of her talents, is being able to sing the Ponyland theme song. But yeah, Ponyland is pretty much another amusement park where 3 or more ponies will entertain you.
And Ginuwine, apparently, will also be there.
No, Ginuwine is like, he's got that Celine Dion deal for Ponyland where he
exactly
plays 3 times a day from Monday to Friday.
But he just sings Pony. None of his other songs. It's just 24 hours of wow, 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 wow.
Yeah, exactly. So DW's obvious pick is Ponyland. But Arthur is skeptical because the last time she picked something, it was a big old bust. And we get a memory of her wanting to go to Santa's Igloo during the summer.
This is like such a crazy original idea. Like it doesn't seem like it's a parody of a real thing. This was just like a joke the writers came up with. It's very out of left field. Like I've never heard of anything like this before.
Yeah, it's quite strange because it's all about visiting Santa during the summer and sharing a sundae with him. The tagline is where Santa spends the summer. So DW really wants to go and see Santa, but they drive to wherever it is, and on the way they see a sign that says "Share a Sundae with Santa and his friendly reindeer." But when they get there, it's funny because this whole thing is incredibly low rent, and it just raised a really big red flag for me because as you they kind of zoom out and show you what it is. It's basically a house like in a suburb with a little bit of a wooden front to it that looks like an igloo, and Santa comes out and he's only half in costume, and the reindeer comes out not wearing its head, and the whole joke is that Santa's like, didn't you bring me a sundae? How can you share a sundae with Santa if you don't bring a sundae to Santa? So it's this really chintzy operation, and my biggest question was, how did this guy get the money together to make TV commercials for this? This looks as low rent as you read about.
I'm assuming he invested money with the mob or something, Goodfellas style. Do you remember that guy in Goodfellas who spends all his money on the TV commercial and then doesn't pay back Robert De Niro, so Robert De Niro starts choking him with the phone? I feel like it's like that.
So you're saying Santa Claus is going to get choked by Robert De Niro?
Or a Robert De Niro, the Arthur version of Robert De Niro, whatever that may look like.
Probably just Robert De Niro with bear ears. But yeah, it was a big bust, so they're kind of not exactly keen to do it. But DW is not budging and brings up basically ponies in every conversation she has for what I'm going to assume is the rest of the week before they leave.
DW's delivery where she's bringing up these ponies is amazing. Whenever every time somebody brings up, it seems like just about anything, DW just has this very monotone, like Pony. It's almost like she's a Pokemon and her name is Pony, because that's all she says.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Washington has lots of great things in it. I don't see any ponies. There's another great one where Arthur kind of comes in, and I've definitely seen this in meme form as well. Washington is where the president lives, and she says, I don't care about the president. I care about ponies.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, man, this could be a tweet in 2017, and it would get a lot of retweets.
I'm sure. I feel like maybe it already has. But Dad's eventual compromise is that if they go to where Arthur suggested this time, she can pick the next trip, which she agrees to. But she tries to angle it so that she can get a pony out of the deal. And I like this because Dad has the same reaction to DW getting a pony as I do toward, like, whenever my fiance, I need to get used to saying that, whenever my fiance is like, we should get a cat or we should get a dog, just a flat no. Just no. Not going to happen. So DW is already kind of being a bit of a pain on the drive up. And I will say, you mentioned DW has some great lines. This is a really good DW episode. But again, it's one of those where, like, if you don't like DW, this isn't going to change your mind. If you love her, then you will love this episode. Because there are lots of cuts of her being really, really stick in the mud. And I know that can really get on people's nerves.
Though I do think in this episode, more so than others, where you've had that, well, not you personally having that complaint, but pointing that out, if you're turned off by DW, it's not an episode for you. I feel like she is redeemed a little bit more in this episode than she has been in episodes prior. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, big time. So as they're going on the drive, they kind of keep passing by ponies, and I love Dad just has this is going to be a long ride. Mom tries to take her mind off it, but then she just starts naming the ponies they come across with such names as Blaze, Scout, Cherry, Stumpy, Dasher, Dancer, and Vixie.
These would not be standout names in the Triple Crown. If you ever look up actual, like, horse names, it's always something like Bill's One Shot, or I spent all my money and all I got was this pony. Like, it's always something really out of left field.
If you're reading this horse, it's already too late.
Exactly. I bet on that one.
Yeah, these names are certainly no American Pharaoh. Now we're over to DC. I have a question for any of our DC area listeners. If you live in the DC area, can you confirm or deny, like, the opening shot of DC is like this clogged highway turnpike? And I just want to know, is the traffic in DC especially bad? Like, is this a joke that lands if you live in the DC area?
I just thought they were trying to show it was a bustling city. I didn't even consider that might be what they were trying to say.
It went from bustling to, like, it's clearly just showing a traffic jam, and I'm like, I wonder if the DC traffic is really this bad. I don't know. Could be a joke. Could be what you say, though. So I would love to have more insight on this. So Arthur is immediately taken with the fact, like, he really wants to go to the White House, and he really wants to meet the president. And, of course, this is where we get our first shot of the president, because in Arthur's fantasy, it's exactly the same as he is in real life. So his first fantasy is him meeting the president, and the president immediately knows that Arthur is the same Arthur Reed that won the spelling bee and did a piano solo at the spring recital. Okay, so the president here immediately. So this was made in the mid-'90s when Bill Clinton was still in office. So
and do we know the exact air date of this episode?
No, and unfortunately,
it's like 94 or something.
No,
right?
no, it's not 94. It's 90. I believe it's 97. I want to say 97.
Oh man,
or late 96. So yeah, either way, we're still into the Clinton years.
For sure.
This is Clinton's second term at this point. And he's clearly physically modeled after Bill Clinton. Like, it's inescapable. The white hair and just kind of the way that he looks. However, his voice. So I'll kind of give you the reading of, Arthur Reed, Mr. President, the same Arthur Reed that won the spelling bee, and also I'm making him kind of sound like an idiot, but and also did the piano the piano recital? Hey, I've always wanted to meet you.
Your impression of this voice actor's impression of Bill Clinton sounds like Hank Hill.
That's what I was getting to, is that I think that they make the voice is Hank Hill. Like I
think it just might be a really bad Bill Clinton impression. I don't think they were going for anything else. I think they were just like, they're really trying to play up the Slick Willy accent, that southern tone that he sometimes has, and I think they just kind of didn't really do it very well.
Yeah, trying to keep him like legally distinct from the Clinton family, but also not exactly capturing the voice as well as they could have. So it does end up sounding like President Hank Hill, even though he looks nothing like Hank Hill. So Arthur is immediately hoping that the president will know exactly who he is. So again, DW very much being a stick in the mud, but I did like a couple of lines here. One, when they're in the car and they're looking for a place to park, she just says, maybe if we walk enough, we'll be so tired we won't notice how bored we are.
I didn't even notice her saying that. I got to use that.
She's sassy.
They check out the Washington Monument, and this shows how much I know about like the American, how much I know about Washington D.C. basically, because I had no idea that the Washington Monument was hollow, and yet you could walk up it. I thought it was just like full of stone, and you could just look at it. I didn't know it was like a tourist attraction where you could go inside and that there was windows at the top. I had no idea.
Well, it sounds like only one of us has seen Spider-Man: Homecoming.
That's very true.
The Washington Monument is a big part of that movie, so and you can definitely tell in that movie it is indeed hollow, and tours are a big part of it. But since they're in the Washington Monument, Arthur gets the idea that he can maybe the president will ask him to redesign Washington, because in kind of response to something DW says, some people don't get the point. So as Arthur becomes chief engineer in redesigning not just the Washington Monument, but all of Washington. So he redesigns the Washington Monument with like a twisty water slide. And my favorite, he instates the Burger and Shake Memorial, which is a fountain that has statues of burger and a hamburger and a milkshake, which I'm not sure why it's a memorial, because I don't think anybody died to make that happen.
It's a memorial to all those who suffer from diabetes.
I suppose so. And then Arthur gets awarded a medal, a presidential medal, for his work. They eventually end up at the Lincoln Memorial, and DW, I like this, and this is totally a question I could see a girl her age asking, like, was he the only giant president? Because, of course, the Lincoln Memorial is really, really big, and it's like, Mom corrects her and just like, he wasn't a giant. The statue is much bigger than he is. Just like, great. The one interesting thing, and it's a fake. At this point...
Fake news. DW's complaining about fake news in D.C.
At this point, DW is kind of, or I should say Dad is kind of like, can't you just enjoy this? And I feel like if I was this pessimistic for this amount of the trip, at this point, my mother probably would have smacked me. She would have been like, we paid good money. We paid good money to come to Washington, so enjoy it, or shut up, essentially.
Yeah, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Pretty much. And so I'm surprised that DW is getting away with it the way that she is. They finally go into the White House, and this is where I remembered that if the flag is up, that means the president is in. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, same here. I wonder if that works the same with, what's it called? Oh, this is bad. I don't remember the address of the... oh, geez, Will. Oh, man.
The address of our prime minister?
Yeah, gosh. Oh, this is going to kill me.
I don't remember it either.
Do you not remember? I'm going to Google it. You keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, so here in Canada, we don't have a president. We have a prime minister. And there's a very well-known address for where their office and their home is that they stay, and we're really blanking on it.
Oh, you're gonna kick yourself when you hear this. And
totally.
So they like, just how Americans refer to the White House as like, oh, it's the White House. It's this known thing. 24 Sussex Drive.
Right.
Or usually just referred to as 24 Sussex is where everybody knows where the prime minister lives, and every new prime minister always moves there.
That's right. It's 24 Sussex Drive in Ottawa, Ontario, which is the center of our country. So they're going embarking on a White House tour, and Arthur's now fantasizing that maybe he and the president can be friends, and he imagines them playing mini golf on the White House mini golf course, which I'm sure it totally has. And the president coming down to Elwood City, and Arthur beating him in a soda drinking contest.
Arthur doesn't strike me as one of those people that were complaining that Obama golfed too much. Like, Arthur seems to think that the purpose of the president is to hang out with him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even understand why Arthur's so excited. Maybe it's just because it's the president and he's, like, famous. But that seems all Arthur really wants to get out of this whole trip is like, oh, what if I met the president and we could chill?
Yeah. and it really is this president is very much Bill Clinton in form and in fashion, but it did remind me a bit of Obama and how he was kind of the president who would go down to like different events and like be seen, a bit like our current prime minister Justin Trudeau.
It's funny that you bring that up, though, because after, like I said earlier, we've been watching the 90s, and not only is there an episode about Bill Clinton, there's an episode about his predecessor, George Bush Sr.
Oh.
And it's funny, this episode very much is a product of its time, because I don't think Arthur would be having... George Bush Sr., though he may have been a very good president, especially when it comes to foreign policy, he most certainly wasn't the most personable president in terms of, like, a guy I'd want to hang out with and play mini golf with. He doesn't really strike me as that kind of cat, so I don't see Arthur having those same fantasies about George Bush Sr. I especially don't see him having them about, like, let's say, Ronald Reagan.
No, definitely not. I mean, of the presidents during this show's tenure, not many episodes have been made to pretty much make the president out to be a complete old codger, like in the episode of The Simpsons where George H.W. Bush moves across the street from The Simpsons.
That's a good one.
That's one of my favorites. I love that episode.
It's so funny watching the 90s, like everything I knew about the election with Bob Dole, I knew from that Simpsons episode where like they get kidnapped by aliens and he's like, I'm Bob Dole.
Twirling towards freedom.
That's all I could think about.
Classic. Back to Arthur now. So they're taking the White House tour, and DW gets another couple good lines in here. I liked because she's kind of trying to look into doors and just basically trying to do something else other than take the tour. And she says, "We could have just stayed home and locked each other out of the bathroom. That would have been fun for a while." And I also liked when she's just looking into doors and Arthur's trying to get her not to make trouble. She says, "I'm just trying to find the government." And I like
there's a line earlier where they're getting a tour of I think like Congress or something, and the tour guide has like the voice of Droopy, and DW asks him where all the horses are, or if there's any like books about horses. No, they're not looking at Congress. Excuse me, they're looking at like the library that's in the White House. I forget what it's called.
The Library of Congress. You had it.
The Library of Congress. And so DW asks if there's any books about ponies, and he says, I don't know. And again, Arthur sort of playing Nostradamus for a moment. DW goes, "You're fired."
You might be looking a little bit too hard into that one.
It's a tad uncanny, though, you got to admit. DC, you're fired. The president, golfing. It's all connected, Will. Look between the lines.
I think we see what we want to see. So DW is kind of essentially is saying that, everybody's afraid of getting in trouble and there are too many rules in the White House. So she walks into a door she's not supposed to and then ends up locking herself out and gets herself a little bit lost. Arthur's afraid that when she gets lost, she'll find her way to the president and then kind of work her way into his inner sanctum and start laying down new laws. And we get a imagination.
If this episode was a 90s kids movie, the line that Arthur says in this moment would be in the trailer, because he almost turns to the camera and goes, "Oh no, DW's loose in the White House. We're doomed."
Yeah, that is an excellent trailer line. You're right. And Arthur's imagination is that she will pass the DW law, which makes it illegal to which makes it illegal to not own a pony. And also, she tacks on a rider at the end of that bill, and she says the national anthem has been changed to Crazy Bus.
I thought this was phenomenal. I thought this was really... you could tell that I'm a big fan of political humor, and so this stuff, like, all really tickled my funny bone. I thought this was hilarious.
Yeah. There's another great line here after the imagination there. So they ask the Secret Service for help to find DW, and she sees them all kind of running around looking for her, and she says... how does the line go? She's just saying, like, if those guys weren't so busy, then they could help me look for the president. Daddy's always complaining about the government and how they don't do anything. So that kind of gives us a little bit of a sneak peek into maybe the political machinations of Dave Reed. I think we've talked about that in an earlier episode.
It was one of our first emails we ever got. I pontificated whether or not Dave Reed would have been a libertarian, and it looks like that's all coming home to roost, because like this is the biggest clue we've ever gotten towards his political leanings. It sounds like he's either a Republican or just anti-big government, which is really, it's just kind of a strange joke to make it a kid's show, but I got a huge kick out of it.
Yeah, so perhaps Dave Reed, a little bit of a libertarian, or at least a libertarian sympathizer. Excuse me. A funny exchange here with one of the guards and with Dad. He says her name is DW, and he just says, "That's it, initials. You didn't give the kid a full name," and he just kind of shrugs.
I wonder if this is before we knew DW stood for Dora Winifred.
I don't think so. I think that's been... I'm sure that they said that at least once in the first season, but so it's kind of silly that he didn't have any answer for him, but I also just thought it was pretty funny. Yeah, so as they're looking for her, DW finds a painting of like a general on a horse. I couldn't exactly tell you what it is, but I'm sure it's reminiscent of a painting, and unbeknownst to DW...
Oh, I think it's George Washington on a horse. I think it's a very famous, picture in the White House.
Yeah, that makes sense. So she unwittingly runs into the president, who kind of plays it cool. I remember liking this when I was a kid. Of just
You don't say, Bill Clinton playing it cool.
She says, "Do you work here?" And he says, "I've worked here for a couple years now." And he'll point out the horse pictures on the way as he takes her back to her family. And she thinks that he's just a tour guide, but as they're on their way out, her and her family, he gets the Secret Service to stop them, and he's ordered himself some presidential pizza, and he's got plenty to go around, so he invites the Reed family into his private dining room for a little dinner.
I feel like we're watching a scene out of like Wag the Dog or something. It's just so accurate to the Bill Clinton mythos.
Yeah, and interesting here is that you would think that if he had any, like if we had ourselves like a Hillary, or if they had any kids, they'd be in this scene, but no sign of any first lady or presidential kids. And I also did like how the pizza box came with the presidential seal on it, so they must have gotten their in-house cooks to whip them up something.
Yeah, in all the scenes where Arthur's imagining hanging out with the president, they add the presidential seal in a bunch of weird places. Like when they're golfing, it's on his golf shirt, which is to be expected, but also when they're drinking milkshakes at the diner, he's got a special like presidential seal pint glass.
Right, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, hey, as long as you can get the iron-on or the sticker, like you might as well put that on everything. I also like how, in his mind, Arthur has built up his meeting the president as being like him being very grown up and distinguished. But when he meets him, he can't help but gush like, Arthur's just like, I won the spelling bee and I did the piano piece at the spring recital. And the president's just like, very nice. I thought that was really funny, just Arthur immediately crumbling and just fanboying out about the president. Perhaps the best DW line of this whole episode is, Arthur says, I bet you'd vote for him if you were old enough, right, DW? And she says, no, I have to learn how he stands on the issues. I'm not going to vote for him just because he showed me some pictures of horses.
DW, an undecided voter, truly the Ken Bone of the Arthur universe.
Oh, I definitely rank her higher than Ken Bone. She's definitely I would say this is almost a Leslie Knope kind of move. This is a very informed decision by a 4-year-old. I certainly wasn't that forward thinking.
That's true. I guess I didn't see it that way.
So I love that line. And as we end the episode, they're driving back home. Arthur is very excited to tell everyone that he met the president. DW says you can tell them that you met too, because now she wants to be president as well. And she wants to pass a couple of laws like a pony for every family, make the national anthem easier to dance to, and institute National Little Sisters Rule Day. Lucas, if you were going to change the national anthem to be something that people could dance to, what would you change it to?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot, Will. Geez, what would I change the national anthem to that people could dance to?
Well, I guess it depends on the dance. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could change it to like EXO Tour Life or something.
That's true. That would be a pretty depressing national anthem, though. Jeez, you really caught me off guard with this one. Why, do you have something in mind?
Something like "Shut Up and Dance" by Walk the Moon.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you.
You don't like that song?
No, and I would like it even less if I had to like sing it every day in front of a classroom.
Good point, I guess. So, okay, so keep thinking about it. If you come up with something, I'd love to hear it before the end of the episode.
Here, okay, "Night Moves" by Bob Seger.
Is Bob Seger Canadian or is he American?
It doesn't matter. Don't know either way. I'm pretty sure he's American. Do I have to pick a Canadian? I guess it's got to be like, oh, I don't know, "Know Yourself" by Drake.
Okay, I mean, hey, could certainly be worse picks than those. So, America, your new national anthem is "Night Moves" by Bob Seger. I have a couple of friends who would be really stoked about that.
It's a lot longer than the current national anthem, but man, it would be pretty hype at arena shows and like sporting events. Bob Seger would be getting a lot of work.
Yeah, they would have to like find out some new way to get him royalties that isn't like essentially giving him a money vault. I'm sure he'd clean up. So that's DW Goes to Washington, and we move into our second story of the episode. Okay, so on the last episode of this podcast, I missed the full name of this episode. I said that it was Arthur's Mystery, to which I was like, I'm not even sure what this is. But it turns out it's Arthur's Mystery Envelope, and once I got that word in there, I knew exactly what this episode was.
I will say, this episode of all the episodes we've watched has the most generic opening sentence from Arthur ever. He goes, "Sometimes stuff happens."
Sometimes stuff does happen, and you're not sure if they'll turn out good or bad. I thought this whole thing was a little bit of a generic softball in order to kind of... Because the whole idea is, like, you're not sure if things will turn out good or bad, and there's a bunch of things happening in the cafeteria that has eventually become like almost like a Rube Goldberg device of things happening. Like, Francine is teaching Sue Ellen how to swing a baseball bat, but it's a ruler. Rattles and Binky are arm wrestling. Muffy's doing her makeup. Buster's eating. And then it all kind of interacts with each other of just, like, Rattles flings some mashed potatoes. Sue Ellen hits it into Buster's spoon, and Muffy has to duck, and just like looks like everything turned out okay. But then it's all meant to be shaken up because the big surprise of the cold open is that Arthur gets called into the office.
I will say, before we get into Arthur getting called to the office, this whole opening sequence reminded me of, there's a sequence from the anime Nishiju, where there's a very similar set of events that play out where someone's eating a hot dog and it kind of slips between their chopsticks and it bounces all over the room in a similar fashion to this mashed potatoes.
Very much physical comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Arthur gets the dreaded call into the office. Now, my fiance and I were talking about this recently. Did you, when somebody got called into the office when you were a kid, did everybody go like, ooh?
Not even when I was a kid. I remember that was happening when I was in like high school. A friend of mine accidentally broke a plate in the university's cafeteria, because we'd go eat it at the university cafeteria next door, and when he broke a plate, all these people who are in their adult years went, ooh. So some things people never grow out of.
I guess that's true. So the episode starts with Arthur getting a manila envelope from the principal's office, and all of his friends are trying to figure out what exactly could be in it. And it must be big because Arthur was called into the office, and it's not like Principal Haney gives kids letters all the time. Binky says that it might be because he flunked Ratburn's big history test, and that might mean he's going to summer school. And we get a little cutaway here, and another chance for the animators to kind of flex their muscle, because they get to do a little bit of a Wizard of Oz parody as Arthur is stuck in summer school. And I realize now, bring up David Lynch a lot on this show, but
You don't say.
yeah. But I found this a little Lynchian in its own way, of just Ratburn looming over him and just like slowly licking an ice cream cone as Arthur is just making his way through summer homework. And then it turns into the Wizard of Oz, because Arthur looks outside and we get a bit of the tornado scene from when Dorothy hits her head, of all of his friends doing all the summer things he can't do. And my fiance loved this one. Buster comes by and he says, "You know what they say, Arthur? Those who fail history are doomed to repeat it."
I mean, he's not wrong.
It's true. And then it ends with kind of, instead of Dorothy's house slamming into the ground, it's the whole school off of its roots. So Arthur is, of course, he's very worried about what this could mean. People are kind of giving their ideas of what he could do in order to avoid giving it to his mother, like maybe throwing it into the washing machine and then having her find it later.
Which I think that's Francine's idea. I think of
Yeah.
all the suggestions, that's the best one, because it doesn't seem suspicious. You could be like, "Oh, sorry, it's kind of big for this," but it's like, "Oh, sorry, I left it in my pants. I meant to give it to you." So it kind of removes any idea that you maliciously hid it from your parents. But at the same time, it gets it all wet so they can't read it.
Yeah, I just feel like in that scenario, they would just get mad at you for forgetting it and not giving it to them in the first place. Like,
Hey, better than them getting, like, Mr. Haiti being like, "Didn't you give it to her?" And then them realizing I threw it in the sewer.
that's true. So Muffy's idea is to leave it in a book and return it to the library, but Brain's idea is to drop it into a storm sewer, and we get a little bit of a POV, of the envelope as it makes its way through the sewer system into the Pacific Ocean, and then trade winds take it all the way to China. Now, this part of the cutaway has stumped me ever since I was a kid. So it goes all the way.
This is probably the least PC I've ever seen Arthur get. It's been pretty good up until now, but this vision of China, of 20th century China, is a little bit dated, I think.
Yes, it's like it's somebody working in like the rice fields, essentially. You know,
In like traditional Chinese garb with like a sickle.
yes. And, she says in Chinese, "A note from Principal Haney," and then lets it go and just says, "Ew." And I have no idea what she's saying ew about.
Maybe it's like we've talked about Principal Haney's merchandising opportunities. Maybe it's a Mr. Sparkle thing where, like, Principal Haney's big in China.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe she knows exactly who Principal Haney is, and then puts two and two together, and it's the musical or the cultural icon that is #Haney. Good old #Haney. So as Arthur goes home and his friends kind of wish him luck, even though it's just like, good luck, Arthur, even though you're going to get in trouble for what you did. And he's like, "I didn't do anything, though." Arthur starts to play the game that we all play when we don't want to tell our parents something that we got in trouble for, of just like, Principal Haney said that the envelope was for Mom. He didn't say that I had to give it to her. Like, he's just trying to figure out whatever way he can both fulfill the implicit idea of what Principal Haney had for him without getting in trouble.
I mean, he's not wrong. It's solid logic.
I mean, sort of. It's that kind of kid logic that, if you don't look at it, if you don't squint at it, then you could probably get away with. But I'm not sure it'd hold up in court, if you follow me. DW, I found this funny. Like, Arthur kind of has it on the table, or he takes it out of his backpack, and DW just immediately sees it from the doorway, just like, what's that? And of course, Arthur can't have it out to breathe for 5 seconds before DW is just like, hey, what you got there? Just begins accosting him.
And Arthur begins to lie, and he lies like he's an L.A. Noire character. Like, the way he's cartoonishly, like, looking around, it's bizarre.
It's, just like, nothing. I wish you could see my facial expressions, but just, like, going all over the place of just, like, Arthur being mo-capped for his role in L.A. Noire.
In fact, DW, he's so worried about it, DW doesn't even have to press that much. He kind of just gives up the goods immediately.
That's right.
He's like, it's an envelope I'm supposed to give to Bob.
Right, and Arthur's never had a very good poker face. Although I do like DW's line of questioning where she gets a little existential. She asks him, "Are you worried that that one day you'll be too old for birthday presents, or are you scared that there really is a boogeyman and he's hiding under your bed and he's waiting for the one night that you don't check?" Really getting up in his grill with the big questions. But you're right. He does eventually crack and tell her what it is, as far as he knows what it is, and is very agitated. Mom comes in from working at the office that day, and we get her in her office attire, which we don't normally see very much. She is waiting on a call, or just waiting to contact somebody named Herb, and that kind of becomes the theme of this episode. Is she's trying to get in touch with somebody named Herb, and DW is trying to tell her that Arthur's in trouble, or he's got like a letter he wants to give her, but Mom's had a long day and she doesn't want to really hear any of it. Arthur's envelope gets mixed in with the mail, and she almost reads it as she's on the phone, but then it accidentally goes into the trash, and it's this really tense scene with this kind of tense thriller music as she gets closer to reading it, and Arthur's like,
it's a really great sting. Like, you see her hand hover over the envelope, and then it like goes to something else.
I did like how DW comes in the room and she just proclaims in this very obvious voice, "Arthur, did you tell Mom about all the trouble you're in?"
It's very performative, yeah.
I also thought that since we know where this episode goes, she's talking to somebody named Leah. Mom is talking to somebody named Leah on the phone, and it's somebody that Herb works with. And I wondered if Leah might be Mrs. Tingley.
Ooh, Leah Tingley.
Yeah. So I thought unless it's a character we've never seen before, it'd be kind of neat if you tied it in to it being Miss Tingley, especially because she's like the principal's aide, it seems. So Arthur manages to go through dinner and the rest of the night without being found out. DW is still trying to get him in trouble. Before he goes to bed that night, he's watching TV with Dad and DW, and they're watching they're watching a show which I'm very glad that they named, because I would have a heck of a time coming up with this. It's two of these white cats, and they're surrounded by hearts, and they are meowing. Gosh, what is that? What is that tune?
I didn't even notice the song they were meowing, but
well,
DW's got some great commentary. She does a quick like AV Club style review of this television program in which she says, "Oh, should I spoil the name of it now?"
Go ahead.
Those karaoke kittens are crazy.
Yeah, puts a little Lucas on it. The only thing I'm thinking of for that musical tune is that it's the same as the Floss Your Teeth song.
Oh.
But it's
floss your teeth. Da-na-na-na-na. It's
it's
row your boat.
Yeah, okay. So they're meowing row your boat, and I'll see if I can put it in here. Yeah, and so it's karaoke kittens, and it seems to be the same. What did they call those things where, those whole CDs they would have of just cats and dogs meowing or barking along to, like, Christmas songs?
Oh, my goodness. I haven't heard about one of those in forever. The closest thing that we have to that these days is, like, Meow the Jewels.
Yes, that's right. I haven't listened to that yet.
It's okay.
Yeah, I imagine that joke maybe gets a little bit old after a while. So Arthur goes to bed, and he has one of those classic Arthur anxiety dreams where the envelope has gotten even bigger while it's in the trash, and it just kind of keeps getting bigger and bigger. Arthur's trying to find places to stash it around the house, like he puts it under the sink. He takes it up to his room, just trying to find anywhere he can to make sure Mom doesn't find it. And he almost gets found out, but eventually hides it in the shower. And at this point, it's gotten so big, it's basically like canvas size, like a poster you would hang up. But it gets bigger and bigger as he hides it in the bathtub. Then he and Mom get out of the house, and the envelope ends up getting so big it splits the house in two, basically.
Yeah, talk about like Lynchian. This is a great. It's as blunt as a metaphor could be. Like, the envelope getting bigger is just the personification of Arthur's guilt, but there's just something unsettling about this giant envelope.
Yeah, really, and it's also kind of disturbing to think about the implications, because like Mom and Arthur got out okay, but the rest of the family are still inside the house, and just have
I
to
didn't even
wonder
consider that.
Yeah, if everybody's okay. But then we get the ultimate twist, where eventually the envelope becomes bigger than Elwood City itself, and then it opens itself up, and it's revealed to be DW, and in another great performative yell, she points at the camera and goes, "Didn't you tell Mom yet?" But it's because DW in real life is bleeding into Arthur's dream, and she kind of asks him at the foot of his bed if he's told Mom yet. So finally he fishes the envelope out of the garbage, and he realizes he has to face the music. So he takes it into Mom, who's working late, and hands it to her, and we find out that it's tax documents from Herb Haney. So Mr. Haney's first name confirmed to be Herb, and it's the documents that she's been waiting for all day, because presumably she's going to be doing his tax return. So after all that, it was, not involving Arthur at all, and he's very, very relieved. And the end of the episode is, Mom reassuring Arthur that even if it was about him, she needs to know. And DW was eavesdropping on them from the outside and is wondering what Arthur's punishment is going to be. If he's going to go live in the garage, if Pal's going to go live in the garage, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's rewind it back. So DW goes to Washington. This is one we were both looking forward to. Lucas, did it live up?
I think so. A lot of times, the episodes I've been really looking forward to, they haven't quite delivered. Maybe because I've built them too much up in my mind, or I just remember specific parts of them. Like, for instance, in Lost, I really was looking forward to the sequence with, like, the squids on the bus, but the rest of the episode kind of fell flat for me. So I was really pleasantly surprised when DW Goes to Washington really hit as well as I remember it hitting. And maybe it's because I have, like, 90s presidents on the brain lately, but all of that stuff really worked for me. One of the funnier episodes of season 2, like, I have tons and tons of notes of DW lines for this episode, and even some lines from Arthur's dad, whereas if you even look at Arthur's mystery envelope, I have far fewer notes, so you can tell just from that how many quotable lines are in it. But I think it's just kind of a fun, like, road trip romp through Washington, D.C., even from a Canadian perspective. I learned some things, so I thought it was fun. My one criticism would be that the Bill Clinton doesn't sound anything like Bill Clinton.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's unfortunately not the best Bill Clinton that you'll hear. It's no like Simpsons or even the professional Bill Clinton imitators. But I agree. I think that this episode, now we kind of mentioned it before we went on a bit of a hiatus there, but we kind of mentioned that season 2 not necessarily doing it for us. This is definitely a step in the right direction. This episode was great, and it's definitely one of the season's best so far. I don't know. I really think it's a great format for how it turned out. It's like they go to Washington, which is fun. It takes them out of their normal environment. DW is very resistant to it, and we get some classic lines from her. I found that when I was a kid, this did actually help me learn a lot about Washington and stuff that I remember to this day. And then it makes total sense that DW would be the one to meet the president. It's a good opportunity for them to be a little bit current in the time that they made it, to kind of not even lampoon the president, but just kind of represent him in a manner. And I like how the story ended up there, and I thought I thought this was a really, really great episode, as DW episodes have the potential to be in whatever season they're in. So very good. Now, I felt like for our second story there, Arthur's Mystery Envelope, you're definitely right in that my notes for that episode are dwarfed by the ones for DW Goes to Washington. And I felt like at the end there, it may have sounded like I was rushing through it, but really, I don't have anything to say about this. It's certainly not bad, but it's just so, I don't know, feels kind of stock. It's like we've seen a lot of episodes about Arthur having anxiety about something, and as much as I can relate to it, it's starting to get kind of old hat, and this episode didn't really bring anything new to the table. It's like Arthur was worried about something, then he faced the music, and it wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be. I feel like we've seen that at least a few times by now.
I agree with you. Like, this episode's one big, there's two things that really work for this episode. One, it's a mystery. Even myself, I was like, what's in the envelope? And two, it's got a good moral that you'll beat yourself up over something worse than the actual punishment most times. So it's better to just come clean and not lie about it. But this episode is super oversimplified. Not much happens in it. Arthur gets the envelope, he worries about giving his mom the envelope, and then he gives his mom the envelope. I think this episode would really benefit from a subplot, like a side story with DW or one of Arthur's friends, because without it, it's really thin. One of the thinner Arthur episodes we've watched so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Thin's a good word to describe it. And but the good thing is that it didn't overstay its welcome. I felt that like it went by super fast. And so it at least had the good sense of like if it wasn't super interesting, it at least wasn't around long enough for you to get too tired with it. So I think we'd both recommend DW Goes to Washington heartily. Okay, so yes, that's our episode for today. We're back once again, and we thank you. Quickly, just want to go through our plugs for social media and whatnot, where you can find us online. Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits. On Twitter, we are at ECL Podcast. On Tumblr, elwoodcitylimits.tumblr.com. If you'd like to send us an email, just like Nancy did for this episode, thank you, Nancy. And if you'd like to be featured on the show, or if you'd just like to give us your feedback or anything related to Arthur, an episode we've talked about, or an episode we've done, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com is your number one spot. Now, there's a bit of a different way in order to find us. You can still go to our SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Elwood City Limits, but here are the ways where you can listen to us. We are on the Google Play Store, so you can find us by searching Elwood City Limits. You can find us on iTunes by searching the same, and if you please, could you leave us a 5-star review and rating? We would really appreciate it. And finally, we are available now on our website. I use that in quotation marks. It's elwoodcitylimits.libsyn.com. That's elwoodcitylimits.libsyn.com, and you can find all of the episodes there and browse through them. I'm not much of a website designer, so the colors may clash or it may not look exactly beautiful or anything. But that's elwoodcitylimits.libsyn.com. And finally, next week, it's going to be another episode. We are back into what we hope to be a bit of a regular schedule. Next week, this is one I'm very excited about. It's going to be DW's Dear Friend, followed by Buster Hits the Books. So, two to look forward to once again. We'd love to hear from you. Get ready for more Arthur images on your feed now that we're back to a more regular schedule. Excuse me. And thank you for sticking with us. Elwood City Limits continues on into Season 2 of Arthur. For Lucas Mancini.
Don't break the rules. I don't want the president to be mad at us.